about this. All right, I'm gonna give people 1 more minute to get logged in, and then we will do our accountability check-in, and then I will introduce our instructor, Matt. I'm going to make Matt a co-host. And I'm gonna play this. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and start our accountability check-in. And I am actually in the office, in like the training room in Eugene. So if you guys have any bingo slots you need me to update for you or anything like that, let me know. I know only some of you are from Eugene, but I can do that here too. So Ryan, you want to get started? Ryan, are you there? I know sometimes you're multitasking. All right, Stephanie.
Things are going well, just touching base with my sphere, and I've got a new buyer.
Awesome. Congratulations. Good job. Young, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
Good.
Uh, I'm trying to get to the office, except for something special. I want to meet and communicate with people more actively. Yeah. And I'm waiting for loan approval.
Good. Awesome.
Yeah.
Sung,
Hi,
hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. How's business going?
Uh, it's still slow on my side, but I'm keep hosting open house, and
Good.
from last week I get my first lead from open
Good.
house,
Great.
so I'm keep updating and keep in touch with that lead, but I don't know, they didn't get response to my follow-ups yet, but I I provided my quality follow-up, and I suggested a meeting for buyer consultation.
Yeah, great.
So I'm keep following up, and I will host same open house on the same spot this weekend too.
Good.
So I also invited that my lead once again to have a meeting in more casual manner.
Yeah.
So I'll see.
Good. Okay, great. Ray, how's everything going with you and your contracts?
I have a total of 3 buyers at the moment. The newest one I just got, it's a referral from one of the agents in the office. Um, working on social media content. I have an open house coming up this weekend. I've staged out 5,000 plus summary of what I should be strategizing as far as personalized marketing, because I want to start moving on to higher end properties.
Yeah,
So just kind of staging my goals one step at a time.
great. Good job. Brendan.
Hey, things are good. I made a list of people to call for this weekend and I'm gonna get that taken care of.
Great. Good. Yeah, lists sometimes like planning ahead who you're gonna call that next day allows you to just go straight to it. Because sometimes, and I've noticed this for myself, like you're spending time getting ready, which is actually just putting off doing the actual activity sometimes. So if you can kind of like prep ahead who you're gonna call, it allows you to just like go straight into it, which I love. Joanna?
Nice. Yesterday, I received a call from other agent from the Keller Williams. She's really busy with many transactions now, and she wants my help with some showings and inspections. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great practice and can get some income while you're
Yeah.
getting that practice in, which is great. Excellent. Dick, how are you today? I know yesterday we were working on mindset. Do you feel like you're in a good spot today?
I think that's going well. I just have to find my mind.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
important. Keep it attached.
Picked out a couple of experienced brokers I'm gonna approach to try and get some help.
Perfect.
I've got about a dozen buyers to work with and a dozen sellers, and I also lie about other things.
Well, don't hesitate to call me for any of that help.
Keep your phone handy.
I will. Perfect. Who have I not hit? I think everyone except for Shannon. I'm not gonna put her on the spot. But welcome, Shannon. She is our newest, well, actually, she's not newest. We have one more that's slightly new, but she just joined within the past week. Keller Williams Eugene Springfield. And so we're really excited to have her as part of the family. And then Shannon, what we do in the beginning of each of these classes is just check in on the activities we're doing, never to like shame or embarrass anyone if they haven't hit those goals yet for that day, but just helps us to kind of hear what everyone's working on and make sure we're moving that needle forward. So, without further ado, today we have Matt Kendall out of the Eugene Springfield office as our instructor. And Matt Kendall was born and raised in Eugene. He became licensed in 2017 after working in Costco for over 13 years. He decided to become a full-time agent in 2018 and capped in his second year. He then became part of that top 20% and served on the ALC with us as well. And Matt chose to work with KW because of their emphasis on continuing education and growth. He's always a great resource for technology. It's kind of one of his strong suits. And then he is definitely one to look for community involvement as well. He sits on the board for the Ronald McDonald House. He's also participated multiple years in Men Wear Pink, which you'll see on his truck. If you ever see his truck, it's labeled as such, and does really good with keeping up on the social media marketing and all of that. So really great person to be learning here from. He's in his office. Definitely don't hesitate to ask him questions, participate, and get the most out of today.
All right. Thanks, Mara. I appreciate you giving me the intro.
You're welcome.
All right, let me share. It's always fun because I actually have a TV on my wall that's also my monitor, so I try to make sure that this works. Hopefully. All right, can you guys all see transaction session 18? Thumbs up.
Yes.
Yep, you're good. Okay, cool. Okay, so today's class is negotiating offers. And fun fact, I just negotiated an offer yesterday. So this is helpful because I can give you real life experience. I just had a listing that we put on Thursday and accepted an offer. Got 3 offers and accepted one yesterday and opened escrow this morning. So pretty sweet. Okay, so negotiation. What is negotiation, right? So the goal that we all are hired to do, right, is either the buy side to get your client to pay the minimum amount of dollars to get the best house in the whole world, right? The other side of it, obviously, is to be the listing agent in which you're selling the house and you're trying to get the most amount of dollars for your seller. Now, a piece of that is we're going to talk about the path of negotiation. We're going to talk about price and terms, the WIC or the WI4C 2TES, right? So those are like the mantra to kind of talk about all the little intricacies outside of the actual contract piece. The 3 Ps, so prepare, present, position. So obviously getting the offers, how the presentation of that works to talk to the buyer, or excuse me, to the seller. And then obviously the position, which is, you know, ranking them essentially. And then we're also gonna talk about negotiation tips, and then we'll do a recap. I'm gonna ask for some ahas, and then daily success system. Okay. So let's do this. Okay. Today's agenda, we just talked about that. What is negotiation? Okay, so you negotiate with who? Your clients, right? Now on the buy side, you negotiate, turn every Bluetooth piece I have off here. Now we have to negotiate our commission, right? So you sit down with the buyer and you say, hey, you know, this is how much I work for. This is how much it's going to cost you. Here's the options of how you're going to pay me. Also, from what I just did, right, the sell side, I have to come up and say, hey, seller, this is what I charge. These are the things that I offer. I use my truck. I use my drone. I do all the things. Right now, I'm also negotiating a sale of their car also. So we are really going above and beyond for this client. So yeah. Also in negotiation, right, you're negotiating with the agent on the other side. So, you know, I have a listing. Ray takes his buyer. Ray says, oh my gosh, this is a great house. I say, great. Ray, send me an offer. A piece of that equation isn't just the nuts and bolts, but it's the fact that I truly trust Ray to do a good job for his buyers, which means that the transaction won't fall out of escrow, right? Because Ray could offer $1 million for a $200,000 property, but if he's out partying or doesn't care or writes the contract backwards, then the whole thing's going to fall apart. And I've wasted time. I've wasted my client's time, you know. So we want to make sure that we're negotiating and building that relationship with the agent on the other side. Excuse me, the common points of negotiation. So typically it's price, right? 9 times out of 10, it comes down to price. Obviously, you want to make sure that your buyers aren't over leveraged, that it makes sense for them. But at the same time, that the sellers feel like they're getting a good deal, that they're getting highest and best price. Terms, same thing. So I had a listing. My example is I had a listing last summer, and we had 11 offers, which is fantastic, but also it's a ton of work for the practicality piece of that, because now I have to go down each one of those offers, figure out all the prices, all the terms, all the closing dates, all those things, right? And then be able to present it to the seller. So terms is a big one, because if it's financial, right? Like that's great. You do want to pick the one with the most dollars, but maybe like my clients, they needed an extra 2 months of occupancy because they have small kids. They need to be in school. she can't just leave like with a month and a half left in school. So that was a big piece. Yes, money was important, but without the 60 days, we wouldn't accept the offer at all, right? So right out of the gate, there were 2 offers that didn't have occupancy. Sorry, money's great, but you know, if we're talking $1,000, that's not going to give you, you know, a hotel room and moving for, you know, it just doesn't add up. So, all those things are factors. The 3 P's. Okay, so preparation. The preparation is key to building confidence and ensuring a smooth negotiation process, right? So I'll give you, it's funny, I was just talking to Ray about this actually. So I'll give you, I don't think I can show it. Can you guys see that? The multiple offer sheet demo? You can? Jana? Nice. Okay. Well, anyway, I'll add you guys all to this. Ray, obviously you have it, but for the prepare piece, so when I get an offer, right, like this is just my dummy version, but when I get an offer, I go, great. Before I present it, I always tell my client, hey, I have this spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet's like idiot proof because you literally just go line by line. And then I've written I actually stole this from somebody else and then just tweaked it a little bit. But at the bottom, right, if the offer is 750,000, at the bottom, we know that they're going to make 693,000, right? And then I just pretended and came up with a number of 256,000. Let's pretend they owe that much. Then that means the actual check, other than some closing costs, which, you know, depends on what title company you go with, is going to be somewhere in the range of 436,000, right? And so from the negotiation side, obviously I want to make sure that the price and the terms make sense, but I really want it to be as simple and clear and concise. Because let me tell you, presenting 1 offer, easy peasy. Presenting 11 offers is, I mean, I say this with all the niceness in the world, is a nightmare because after about offer 4, you know, there's just a lot of numbers for someone who is not necessarily in real estate day to day to sort of get overwhelmed with. So to be able to have this, it's really easy to compartmentalize. And the nice thing is I share this with the client too. So at any point, if they wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and they're like, oh my gosh, or let's say they work swing shift and they get off work at 3 in the morning and they're like, oh my gosh, what was that one offer? Remember that one offer? Oh gosh, what was the number again? Before I go to bed, I want to like put that in my head and then sleep on it tonight. Right. So this just makes it super just clear and concise. So that's my preparation, right? Present. We had a call. So yesterday we took a call and I said, hey, here's the offers. You've already seen them. I've already emailed you copies of them. You know, what do you guys think? This is a situation in which, you know, do you like anything? Is there anything that's very obvious that we definitely do not know? Like, actually, I think I just jumped ahead. Is it? Well, maybe not. Okay. Because I realized there's no number 2 for prepare, or for present, but so sorry guys, I just skipped that, I think. So know your goal, know your client. Yes, think ahead, right? That means setting clear expectations. It's very clear, it's very easy, be informed. They both have an offer or a copy of the contract, and they also have the spreadsheet. Obey the laws. Please guys, obey the law. That seems like that should go without saying. But every time that I have a listing, I go, also this whole page, please sign this. Can you guys promise not to break the law? And they go, yep. And I go, great, thanks. And then know the documents inside and out, right? So as I'm putting them in, I'm making sure to obviously know what I'm reading and yeah, making good choices. Oh yeah, there's like a whole bunch of stuff in between. Sorry guys. Okay, so provide the points. So yeah, so as we're presenting, right, and as I'm asking for clear expectations, I'm saying, hey, you know, do we need what's important to you, right? Do you need that occupancy after close? Because if you do, then that needs to be a ledger line on that sheet. Anything that's extraneous that they want, right? Like the listing that I have now, I realized that we didn't really have a conversation about anything in the shed, and it wasn't because we didn't have the conversation about that shed specifically, but I told them to take everything out that they wanted. So they were like, yeah, anything else, anything in the shed, we need it at all. Right. So I just called the buyer's agent this morning and was like, hey, any chance you want a glass table or any chance you want the couch? Like, they don't want that stuff. Right. And so having those conversations to make sure that as you are negotiating things, as now, right, we're going into the inspection period, right? That might play a factor. Because you just never know what's gonna come up. Yes, do you have any other offers? Obviously, that's a nice one because on that spreadsheet, it shows the exact dollar amount that they're gonna net, or relatively close, I guess, estimate. Yeah. Also, guys, stop me at any point as I'm going on this. If you have any questions, raise your hand or just chime in, interrupt me. I'm totally fine with that. Okay, so let's do the scenario. Read the scenario. You're representing a single buyer, Dick. So one of your 12 buyers. We want this is gonna be for you. Okay, you're representing that person. Your client is renting her present property. Like any first-time buyer, she is looking to you to guide her through the process. The asking price for the home is, or sorry, the asking price for the home that she loves is $175,000, which would be amazing. What year was this written? 2022. The house appears to have evidence of a roof leak. Ooh, okay, is listed as is, and is correctly priced. Your client would like to keep her payments as low as possible, since she has a number of student loans to pay off. Okay, fair. She wants to write an offer for $155,000. Okay, $25,000 or $20,000 under asking. There's been quite a bit of activity on the listing. Okay, clarifying questions. So here we go. Here's your participation. What kind of clarifying questions to ask the client? What do you guys think would be some good questions to ask? Because I got a couple in my head, but I want to know what your thoughts are first. Brendan, Ray, I know you got some questions. What do you got for me?
You're asking me and I'm just looking through your Excel.
Oh, so if you have a client, right, and the buyer looks at a house for $175,000, and she wants to write an offer for $155,000, what would be one of the first questions you'd ask her? I mean, $20,000 under ask, and according to this, there's been quite a bit of activity, which means probably there's an open house and there's 10 groups that you've seen move in the last 30 minutes.
There are many possibilities that the offer was not accepted because it's 20 under the asking price.
Well, so my question to you would be then, like, what if she came to you and said, hey, I want to write for 155, what would you ask her? What would you ask the buyer? Because essentially question number one, right, would be why? Like, what's the goal? Right now, this obviously tells you that she has a number of student loans and she wants to keep her payment as low as possible. Now that's a subjective term, right? Like that's like saying what's cheap, right? Like somebody with $10 million in the bank thinks a Bugatti is cheap, right? But somebody with $10 in the bank thinks that like a Honda Accord from 1986 is cheap, right? So the question that I would ask would be, what is the actual reason behind that? Is that because that's what you can afford, right? Is that her limit? Is that her actual financing limit? Is it because she thinks maybe she can get a deal? Which a lot of people think, hey, what's the harm in writing an offer? Even if it gets rejected, it might get accepted, which sure, there is some science behind that. But if it's early on, right now, it doesn't say a couple things, because here would be my question to both the client and to the realtor. Right, is you want to dig into her emotions and figure out, okay, she's a first-time home buyer, she's super excited, and she wants to pay the minimum amount, right? All those things are true. The other piece of it is maybe that roof leak means that the house has to be cash and maybe she can't buy it at all, right? Because it has a hole in the roof and the seller doesn't want to fix it. Maybe it's a situation where they maybe the buyer really wants to make a long escrow. I mean, there's like a whole bunch of different things that you really want to figure out if it's a money issue or if it's an emotional issue. Because you have to remind them, hey, yes, I would love to write it for 155, but that really only works if it's been on the market for like 6 months or 2 months or a month even. I mean, if it's day one and there's an open house and there's 30, groups coming through, you might just be spinning your wheels, right? And so you want to make sure that this buyer is qualified for the dollar amount that you're looking at, right? And then also that they're not wasting your time. And not that buyers are going to necessarily waste your time, but those are just good qualifying questions, right? Because if Joanna, you meet with this buyer and they say, oh, I'm only going to ever write offers on houses for $20,000 under whatever they're asking, then I mean, they might be your best friend and that's great, but you're probably going to be spinning your wheels, right? You're probably going to spend a lot of time and not ever get anything closed.
If she really loved the house and she had the financial possibility, she have to offer for the asking price.
Yeah, I mean, yes, and this is the other pieces I would say take into consideration all the other things, right? Is it something that you think that would stay on the market a long time at that price? Like, if you genuinely felt like 175 was a perfect price and there was a lot of activity, but if it was just a lot of activity because maybe it was a bad house in a really good neighborhood, but because it was, because you think that it would be on the market for a while, then, it might still be worth it to write the offer, but you have to have the conversation with both the client and the broker to figure out the motivation. Because I've had clients that they're happy to have that thing sit on the market for a year because they are absolutely certain that it will not go for less than that dollar amount. I had one that was on the market for 6 months. We didn't do one price reduction. And then I renewed the offer or the listing for another 6 months and we didn't do any more price reductions ever. So I had a listing on the market for an entire year, 0 price reductions. And every time that we'd have a conversation, he'd say, oh no, it's totally worth it. I go, okay, well, it's not like, it's not like you're a little bit off. Like no one is looking, no one's even texted me about the house in a year. So clearly, the sign's not doing anything. So it's just some of those qualifying questions. Okay, so presenting the offer. So call the other agent, right? So you want to obviously pay attention to verbal cues like pauses and voice qualities. So, some of this stuff like keep quiet once you present the offer, listen carefully to what's important to the other party, stay calm and relaxed. Obviously, you don't want to make a call and say, oh my gosh, my client can't wait to win this house. They love it, right? Because then you're insinuating that your clients are willing to do whatever they possibly can to get it. And while your heart might think that's a good idea, the problem is that once you say it, then the other side says, oh, well, clearly they're motivated, so I can negotiate whatever I want out of them because I can get more, right? So stay calm and relaxed. Focus on the client's needs. Excuse me. Oh, Ray just popped back in. And then give your offer the best chance. So we obviously want to make sure that, if there's anything that anybody needs, right? I've had conversations with brokers and I say, hey, just so you know, before you even write the offer, do whatever you want, but we have to have occupancy or we have to have whatever. There are some non-negotiables. And so, obviously you want to make sure to do that for both sides, right? Seller, Ray, if Ray calls me and said, or if I call Ray and I say, hey, I know you're going to write an offer. Listen, here are the minimums I go, you figure out what you want to do with the dollars and the terms, but they will not accept any offer without occupancy or whatever, right? And then he'll call me and say, hey, Matt, listen, my clients are flexible. You know, when I call a listing agent, I say, hey, is there anything outside of dollars and terms that you guys want? Do you want a fast close? Are you trying to get out of the country? Are you trying to move? Do you need money fast? Do you need earnest money that is guaranteed? Like all those little pieces that might not necessarily make a huge difference. Sometimes to the seller can make a huge difference, and it can be something that can literally get you to win, you know, dad, or have your offer accepted, or to make it clear cut for the seller to pick yours. Position, so acknowledge and affirm common ground. So obviously we want to make sure, you know, that you're audibly saying, yes, Ray, we both can agree that money is the most important, right? Always. 99% of the time, it's going to come down to that. But outside of that, you know, what else can we do, right? How and what questions? How long do you need? You know, what can we do? Know what positioning is in a process, or know that positioning is a process. And then of course, know when to walk away, right? There has been scenarios where, you know, it sucks because we don't make a dime until it's time to close, right? But at the end of the day, doing what's best for your client sometimes means, hey, you know what? This is just not going to work, because yes, if you are desperate and you have $10 million in the bank and you want to buy this house and it's incredibly expensive and it's your appreciation is going to take forever to get back, and they don't care because they want to get in the neighborhood because their mom lives 4 doors down, then cool, whatever, do what you do. But sometimes it's like, hey, you have to go back and say, hey, here's the thing. Like, I really like this offer, but you know, there's these intangibles. I don't necessarily know. It sounds like they're going to probably ask for every possible thing on the inspection report. The other one has an inspection waiver. They don't care. They just want the house, right? And if it's the same dollars or it's nominal, if the person with the inspection waiver says, we don't care what the house looks like, and we're willing to give you, you know, $500 extra, right? Versus the person that's like, well, we're gonna, you know, maybe offer $1,000 more, but they're probably going to nitpick for every tiny thing. Then that laundry list of things could be, you know, 10 grand worth, and it could be a huge waste of time, which is days on market. And, you know, then you've lost all your sort of momentum, right? So, from both sides, right? You really just want to figure out what truly, and this is one of my big things of why I love Keller Williams, is it's a win-win or no deal, right? Like, yes, I want to make my client the most amount of money as possible, or get them the best house for the cheapest amount. But ultimately, right, I still want Ray's clients, I still want Joanna's clients to like feel good about it at the end of the day. When I get a big fat check and hand it to my seller and say, you guys just made a ton of money, and Ray's like, yes, here's keys, first time home buyer. You guys won, you got what you wanted also, you know. That makes for good business, and it makes for good, just, I mean, personally makes for good karma down the road. So, okay, we don't necessarily need to like do all the activities, but we'll just do this real quick. So present your case to your partner. Okay, so let's do a scenario. So, Ray, you're the buyer's agent, okay? Are you ready for this?
Okay.
Okay. Scenario: the property has 4 bedrooms, 3.5 bath, and is listed at $350,000. Wow, it's cheap.
Yeah, that's a steal.
In a well-established neighborhood too. Okay. Scenario over, I'll buy it. So the house requires new carpeting throughout the first floor and a new garage door opener. 3 offers have been made, but all were below asking. Okay. So your buyers are making an offer of 340. They've been pre-approved. Great. The buyers would like to close in the shortest time possible since they're moving from out of state and need a home for their family. Since they are leaving their appliances in their current home, buyers would also like all the appliances. So you're asking for washer, dryer, microwave, oven, fridge, and dishwasher. Okay. My sellers have raised their family in the house that I'm selling and have many friends and family in the area. Since their children are grown, they no longer need the amount of space in their current home and have purchased already a home in Florida. Sorry, my wife just texted. Okay. They would like to give all their appliances to their daughter who has just gone through a divorce. Yikes. They will not be moving until they have sold our current house. And although they would like to get to Florida as soon as possible, they are ready to stand their ground regarding the price. Okay. So, using what you've learned in the course. So essentially we need to negotiate. So what's your offer, sir? How are we gonna get this done? You offered 10 grand under and you want all the appliances. And I'm pretty steady at 350 and I want all the appliances.
It's hard to assuade anyone who has children going through divorce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the trickiest piece about this too, is family.
Yeah, it almost sounds like they've made up their mind about helping out their kid. So
Like
providing some concierge for my clients for the 340,000 and maybe letting them know, hey, let's put in this offer with escalation contingency to meet their 350. Maybe a clause that states, should things change for the daughter, the availability to go up will be this much more. That's what I'm thinking in a case, and with a case like this.
Yeah, because the tricky piece is the listing or the seller cares about money, but has an emotional tie to the sale.
Yeah.
Right. So the hard piece is figuring out how to cater to the emotional side while also getting the material possessions that your buyer wants. That's pretty good. I mean, so here would be, well, actually, anybody else? Brennan, Dick, Joanna, like, does anybody else have thoughts on how you would do this?
I would even communicate with the listing agent and really dive deep into figuring out exactly whether it's the daughter who wants all the appliances or it's the parents that want her to have all the appliances.
Exactly. You have to ask to the seller agent what is non-negotiable in this transaction. Okay. You can negotiable is the price and something else on what time is better to move to the house. But in this case, there are many emotions. And you have to ask for that. What is non-negotiable?
Yeah, and I think that, you know, the other question I think would be, first, would be to the buyers. So Ray, your clients, and say, hey, listen. Now, the buyer's piece would be the first question, because remember that the sell side has 3 offers, right? So their piece of it can be, they can be a jerk, right? Not jerk necessarily, but they can say, we're gonna hold strong because we don't, like, awesome, great, like, Ray's offer is low, we don't care. If they want the appliances, fine, they can kick rocks because we have like Young's over there and he's got it at 340 also, but they don't want the appliances, so that's a win. Right? So the question for Ray to get his offer accepted would be like, hey, to the buyers, first of all, is 340 the absolute tip top of your budget? Like, are you literally only approved up to 340, or can you bump it and do anything else? Right? That's question one. And that's not necessarily to get a hard answer for a number, but to know if that piece is the lender saying no, or their emotions saying no, right? Because those are
Plus,
two
at
different
this
things.
at this point, your buyers already know that they have 3 offers ahead of them.
Right. So, I mean, at this point, they're the ones that need to, I mean, not to say that they need to make the concessions because sellers can make concessions too, but
Yeah.
the piece is at least at the beginning to get the offer accepted, because the other piece of this is they haven't even got to the inspection. Maybe the inspection comes up and there's, I don't know what state this is that's in, but if they're in an area where there's tons of mold, right? Like, then
Yeah.
maybe they say, forget it, we're not going to get the mold remediated. We'll sell you the house and we'll just give you the appliances instead of the mold remediation or whatever, foundation crack, or, you know, maybe whatever. But to get the offer accepted, the beginning piece of this would be, hey, I really understand that. I appreciate it. Maybe we go up to 350, right? But we're going to ask for $10,000 in closing costs. And those $10,000 closing costs are just going to be essentially for the seller to be able to take their appliances and give them to the daughter, and then for Ray's buyer to walk in and be able to have new stuff ordered at Lowe's and shipped and connected, right? Because their issue isn't like, hey, we love the fridge because it's a Frigidaire and Frigidaire is the best thing in the world, best brand in the world, right? They just don't want to go through the headache of hacking stuff up and then driving a dishwasher, 600 miles, right? So if they can get around that, then it could just be dollars amount.
Yeah.
Or somewhere in between. Maybe they say, hey, we only need $4,000 or $5,000, and maybe maybe 345 is enough to buy appliances,
Even like a smart contingency, you could use escalation clause to beat out the other 3 offers, and then an additional contingency for them to keep their appliances from moving from their current home, but for it to be a concession for the seller if they were to go in at full price after beating out the other 3.
Right, like if I mean, like in the escalation notes, say yes, we'll go to 350, but if we go to 350, then we want the appliances for essentially, because you also have to give it a $0 value.
Yeah.
Right. Because you would say, because there's no value to the fridge, or
well, the buyers right now have their own appliances. They're just not willing to move them because they're going out of state. You could ask for concessions for all new appliances for the buyers to purchase them.
Well, no,
after the sellers have given away their current ones, or an expense for moving the appliances with their move.
No, they're leaving their appliances in their current home because that's the home that they're selling.
Exactly. The buyers are leaving the appliances in the current house.
And also, I mean, as a general statement too, typically anytime that I'm writing an offer, that's my negotiation piece. I always ask for the appliances, and then I can concede them if we don't need them, right?
Yeah.
Because I'd rather have them and not need them than need them and not have them.
Yeah.
Right. Like. So yeah. So anyway, I mean, obviously this is like one example, but yeah, it's pieces like that where it's like coming up with creative solutions because if you go back to the buyer, and maybe the other end of this is maybe the buyer says, we actually don't really care. It's really not the end of the world. We would much rather win the house. And maybe if it literally comes down to appliances, then maybe they say, actually, never mind, we don't care. We do care because it's going to be annoying that we have to buy stuff, right? But we would much rather buy stuff and get the house in the neighborhood with the family and the things than have to like deal with losing and then keep looking for houses for another 6 months or whatever. But yeah, but conversations on both sides, right? Buyer's agent goes back to their buyer and says, hey, is this truly like your highest and best? And where's your gray area? And then the seller says, hey, maybe we really are, maybe that's it. Or maybe you can say, yeah, well, actually, the daughter really doesn't need them. Or maybe the daughter still really does need them, but we'd be happy to, exchange them out and give you a closing cost credit so that you can buy your own stuff. Or at the end of the day, maybe it's stuff that like doesn't move, right? Maybe the fridge does, maybe the oven stays and the dishwasher stays, right? Because it's like attached. And maybe they really want the fridge because the fridge like was fancy. And then it's like, cool, maybe there's somewhere in the middle that you guys can meet, right? Because fridges are sort of a dime a dozen, you can get that, you know, but sometimes an oven, you know, is backdated to order or whatever, right? But figuring out what's important for livability, right? You can live without an oven. It's tough to live without a fridge, right? So there's going to need to be some kind of time frame in that. So anyway, all right. Negotiation tips. Okay, so be professional. Obviously, keep your goal in mind. Pay attention to your communication and tone. Right? There's many brokers, and there's a broad spectrum of personalities out there, right? But you always want to obviously pay attention to the communication and relate with the tone, because anytime that you're talking with anybody in the transaction, obviously you want to do it tactfully. And yes, right, what, you know, everyone sort of handles every situation a little bit differently, but making sure that, you know, you don't get too type A high D scenario and bulldoze, because potentially you could either shut the other side down and they don't want to work with you, or the client is offended, and that's probably worse, right? Because then you could either lose the client, or the client tells their broker that says, never mind, I don't want to do business with this person because they're being whatever, you know. Because at the end of the day, there's going to be some give and take, and you just have to figure out when you can take and when you have to give, you know. Obviously based on each situation. Don't reveal too much, listen more than talk, keep your client's motivation close to your chest. So obviously don't reveal too much. So if your client is like this last one, right? If your client's like, oh yes, I have to get 350, right? Like that's the only dollar amount, we are unwilling to sell for less than that. Well, the truth is, at the end of the day, sure, that would be the goal, right? But if the house is on the market, well, I mean, I guess my guy's a bad example because he was willing to wait a year, but typically they still have raised their hand and they've still gone through the hoops to get their house on the market. So really, if we're talking a couple of $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, depending on the terms, you know, there's still motivation, right? But you don't want to tell them that. Like I've had sellers where I'm like, where a for sale by owner says, oh, you know, it's listed at 350, but I'm happy to take 310. I'm like, what? First of all, don't tell me that.
Hey
I
Matt,
represent the buyer. Yeah.
can I get your 2 cents on this answer I just got from ChatGPT?
Yeah.
All right. So the compromise on the question, to help your sellers accommodate their daughter's need, our buyers would be willing to compromise, and we can agree to only request kitchen appliances, refrigerator, stove, dishwasher, etc., while only allowing the sellers to keep the additional appliances, washer, dryer, that may hold sentimental value. This way your sellers can still provide something special to the daughter. On term 2, a flexible closing date. If your sellers need a little extra time to finalize their moving plans or to help transition their daughter, the buyers are open to a leaseback option for a short period up to 30 days at nominal cost, allowing them to stay in the home briefly after closing while they finalize their move to Florida. And then term 3, for the home to be in an as-is condition, the buyers are willing to proceed to understanding the need for new carpeting and a garage door opener, recognizing that they can undertake these improvements after the purchase, which reduces the need for repair negotiations. So it just says justifying the offer, understanding that the offer at $340,000 is below the asking price is a strong offer considering current market conditions and repairs needed. Furthermore, the expedited closing time coupled with the concessions regarding the appliances reflects the buyer's commitment and readiness to facilitate a smooth transaction.
Yeah. I mean, that's essentially, yeah, like that's the negotiation piece of figuring out. Now it's not called a lease back, it's called a rent back, but it's,
yeah.
And you can do, if it's a loan, it can be up to 60 days. But yeah, 100%. If you take out the need for an inspection, right? If you say, hey, we're going to give you an inspection waiver because we know that the carpet is bad. Sorry, where is it? Yeah, we know that the carpet is bad and we know that the garage door opener needs replaced. And we are fine with that, and we're not going to ask for any of that stuff. Right. And then it's like, hey, yes, it's going to be a pain in the ass, pain in the butt, whatever, sorry, to have to deal with moving the fridge, moving the dishwasher, all that stuff. And you're right. Maybe there is like an emotional attachment to the washer and dryer that you can say, okay, we don't really need those. They're in the mud room. It's super easy to put it through the garage. And maybe that can be something you can concede. Well, both people still get some of the things that they need. Right. Where it's like, it's annoying to give up the washer and dryer, but if it
I'm
makes
gonna
the
be I'm gonna
moms,
be 1,000% honest, and I completely skimmed past the part of the home requiring new carpet and flooring because I got so caught up on the emotional side of things.
well, I mean, but that's the thing is
Yeah.
and again, you're going to get a whole different slew of buyers. That's going to be the other big piece is sometimes you have to sell the property to the buyer where you say, listen, the garage door opener is not complicated. That's $300, right? In the scope of things.
Mhm.
And carpet, are we talking about a house that's, I mean, it's 4-bed, 3.5 bath. Is there any hardwood in the kitchen? Like, what is the actual square footage, right? Is it one
Yeah.
bedroom that's shot, right? Or is it like so bad that there's holes and it's unfinanceable? Those are two different things, right?
Mhm.
So figuring out what the motivation is, and maybe the buyer is a contractor, and the contractor's like, I don't care at all about carpet. Well, maybe the seller says, oh my gosh, this is going to be so difficult because of the carpet, right? And the contractor goes, I don't care. I just want to be in the neighborhood. I can do all the renovations that I want to do, right? Then you're like, cool. This person, that is a negotiation that you didn't even have to have. Where the other two buyers maybe are like, oh gosh, we'd love to, but it's teal carpet and that's not going to do, and we're going to need diamond studded hardwood floor from Ethiopia, whatever. Then like kick rocks, right? Get out of here. So yeah, it's a good example. So yeah, so listen more to talk, keep your client's motivation, right? Obviously you don't want to tell them too much, and then obviously don't be attached to the outcome. So trying to figure out, right, like, yes, obviously the goal is to get the outcome that everybody wants. Is, do you want to get it under escrow? You want to get it closed? But really trying to make sure that you are aware of the client's needs. And at the end of the day, if they are like, hey, I just can't do it, I can't swing it, then hey, you know what? That's not the right one, and you move on to the next house. Okay. Oh wow, we're pretty close already. I didn't realize this is so short. That was really fast. It's only 2 o'clock, guys. Sorry. Well, let's see. How's your thinking changed? What is some of your feedback? What are you guys thinking about? Like, what is trying to think of another good example. The rent back one is always my favorite because when you get 11 offers, obviously that we were able to chew through 2 offers pretty quickly and pretty easily.
I think for me is making sure I stay consistently analytical and not try to get swayed into the side of the emotional things with clients, both on the sellers and the buyer side.
Yeah. I think being able to take an approach of practical, right? Where it's like, I mean, here's my example for my own house that we just bought last year, right? My goal was figuring out how to negotiate in a way in which we got in the neighborhood that we wanted, right? That was the primary goal. It wasn't that, I shouldn't say it was the primary goal, but I needed an extra bedroom. We also needed an office. Square footage would be nice to whatever degree that looked like, but I really needed to get in the school district for my son. And I also needed RV parking. Those were really RV parking, and the school district was really my non-negotiables. Money, we could sort of like go up and down with that. And condition really was pretty far down the list, where I really wanted it to be a functional home, right? I really wanted the HVAC to work. died in the middle and during the negotiation, during the inspection period. And so, you know, we had some repairs made, like, but those were my focus pieces. We have super ugly brown carpet. I hate it. It's gross. It's upstairs. But guess what? It is what it is. We have a dog, and the dog can go down the carpet. And the truth is, she's 16. So honestly, in the next probably 2 years, she'll be gone, right? And when that happens, then we put nice new hardwood floor upstairs, right? But figuring out what the motivation is, I had to be emotional about the neighborhood, right? I needed to feel like it was going to be a good place for my family. But I absolutely analytically needed the numbers to work, right? I needed to know that the neighborhood would appreciate enough before the next time that we would potentially need to sell. And I needed to make sure that the function for my wife to have her own office happened, right? So now, of course, I both represented myself and my wife in selling our house and buying the next one, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend because there's a lot of emotions involved in that. You know, but that I was unprepared for, truly. But I think that it really gave me a good perspective, realizing that as I help clients, I really need to figure out what their true motivation is instead of just the dollars, right? Because we all want to make the commission, obviously. It's why we're in this business. That's how you make money. It's how you put a roof over your head. But it's sort of finding those gray areas and figuring out value, right? Which isn't actually, here's another good example for you. So my sister, when I got my real estate license, we had a conversation about the house that my sister bought with her husband. And this was probably, it was before I got licensed many years ago. So they bought this house in Bend, love the house, everything's great. They go to sell the house and they got 2 offers, okay? I don't know what the price was, but one was higher than the other. So 2 offers come in, one is higher, one is like $5,000 higher, right? This is like 10 years ago. So $5,000, it was from a investor, and the investor wanted to basically, his goal was to buy up every house on the street and turn the entire street into one giant rental, like his rental investments, right? The other offer came in, it was $5,000 less, but it was a newly married couple, and they were trying to have their first kid. So my sister, her husband, who were also newly married and about to have their first kid, decided we're willing to give up the $5,000 because we want this young couple with the potential to have a kid to be involved in a great neighborhood in which they have already fallen in love with, right? So when you take the real estate course, right, like the negotiation piece, you know, you're taught to understand the terms and, you know, bylaws and occupancy and sort of all of the sort of nuts and bolts of it. But figuring out those things that are not necessarily factors in, like in the divorce situation, right? Like, or my sister's situation where their motivation was, yes, they want to get top dollar, but a $5,000 sales price doesn't actually make them $5,000 extra dollars, right? It makes them whatever, $4,200, whatever. But that extra money wasn't nearly as important as setting another family up for success for their first purchase, right? So a lot of these times, that's how you can win these deals, is really figure out how to position yourself from the sell side or the buy side of negotiating these things, is figure out what's most important outside of the nuts and bolts of, you know, of dollars and cents. Which is funny because it says, what do you feel differently about what was meaningful for you today? And yeah, a lot of times there is a lot of emotions, right? Like Ray, like that example that we gave with the divorced daughter, is it's meaningful because they can pass that along. So yeah,
We could just solve it
anybody?
by finding her a partner too.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is, who knows? I mean, really, maybe it's a situation in which she already has a boyfriend. I mean, they don't give any of
Yeah.
that backstory, you know?
Yeah.
And so some of it is like, you know, I mean, obviously, I mean, you won't necessarily know all those sort of ins and outs, but I mean, here's another thing too. So when I mean, I do this for both sides of the transaction. So when I have a listing, typically, I mean, like, I work with some staging stuff, I do some cleaning stuff, I deal with removal of things. Also, I pressure wash, I do all that stuff. Anyway, as I'm doing that, I typically will door knock the neighborhood, try to have as many conversations with as many different people in the neighborhood to both get a feel for the neighbors, but also potentially learn about the house that I'm selling, right? Because maybe somebody knows something that, you know, whoever lives there maybe doesn't want to tell me, or maybe just didn't know because the other person's lived there longer. And same thing with the buy, right? So I'll show the property to the buyer. We'll have a nice walkthrough, have a conversation. Okay, you guys go home, think about it, and they'll leave, they'll drive away. I'll go to the next door, the one on one side, and then I'll go to the house on the other side, and then I'll usually go to the house across the street. And I door knock and I just say, hey, it's twofold, right? One, it's FaceTime, right? Like, you're like, hey, my name is Ray, I'm a realtor. And also, I'm not trying to sell you on something. I'm trying to ask for your advice because you have knowledge, right? So then you are requesting them that they have value. You're giving them credibility. And also you're learning about things, right? Like, there was a house up in the South Hills one time that I went and I door knocked this lady, and it was a really nice house, but it was like, it was vacant, and I couldn't, something in my head was like, there's just something not right about it. It's a really, really nice house, really cheaply priced. I couldn't figure out what was going on. So I go across the street, and this sweet lady who's probably in her 80s, and she's like, oh, I hope you sell that, honey, because that house needs a new buyer, because there have been renters that have lived there for like the last 2 years. And she goes, and once a month they back up this giant U-Haul, and they turn all the lights off in the house, and they open the garage door, and they have big giant black plastic bags that they fill the back of this U-Haul, and they shut it down, and then they leave at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I go, what? So we talk about it, and we figured out that there's then I started to put two and two together, because there was a bunch of weird wiring, and there was a bunch of eye hooks that were screwed into the ceiling. And now obviously I know what this is, but I didn't know then. It was a huge marijuana grow, and they had this 3-car garage, and it was full. I mean, the whole thing was just like, it totally made sense after she said it. And so she's like, we just want good, respectable, like a family in this neighborhood. And so right away, for negotiation purposes, right? Like, I wasn't going to call the broker and say, oh my gosh, you guys used to have a weed grow. Not going to say that, but I'm going to lock it away, because what that means is clearly the condition also reflects, because the people didn't care. Their goal was to grow as much weed as humanly possible and ship it out every month, right? That was their only goal. So the fact that there was a bunch of tile that was a marble tile that was cracked, they didn't care. Who cares? It's not their house, right? And so the seller obviously is motivated, because it's been vacant for 6 months, right? With no income coming in, and clearly broken marble tiles that they're unwilling to fix, right? So there was some leverage that I knew, like, okay, this person is clearly exhausted, frustrated, probably not happy about, the way that they had to evict the tenants. So there was, right out of the gate, there were some of those pieces that I could then go back to my buyer and say, okay, I'm pretty sure, 4 months on the market, we're not gonna go at list price. And secondly, depending on the condition of the appliances and the HVAC unit and the water heater, like, those kind of things started to really play into my negotiation. Now, of course, fun fact, we ended up not writing an offer on the house, but I made 3 new friends in the neighborhood and put them in my CRM, right? And so, but it was just a good learning experience, because I think that each time that you sort of do that, right, each transaction obviously is going to teach you something, but it's how you like feel about that, right? Where I physically had a reaction when she said, oh, they have these big plastic bags, and I was like, oh, it's marijuana grow, duh. Like, I physically had a reaction where I go, well, that's annoying. I should have caught that, right? And now I catch all the time because I'm aware of it. But it's things like that after I did that the first time, right? How are your behaviors going to change? I go, okay, cool. Now I'm going to do that every time, right? In fact, the listing that I have right now on Hawthorne, I actually went down to the end of the street because I was going to talk to the guy that was out there, and I was flying my drone or something. I can't remember. And I walked down there and he was outside, and I said, well, since I see you out here, I probably should introduce myself. So I introduced myself and talked to him, and he's like, yeah, we've been seeing it's funny, Mara talked about my truck. He goes, we've been seeing your black truck with that pink tailgate, and we've been keeping track of you. And I was like, oh, okay. I go, well, I'm not a bad guy. I'm a good guy. And he's like, I know. I saw that you're the realtor. And so we shook hands, and like, great guy. But it's those kind of things where it's like those things then play into when I talk to buyers about writing an offer on the house. I can tell them, yeah, it's a really great neighborhood. It's not just me looking at like some statistic that I saw when I did a Google search, or ChatGPT told me the, murder rate in Bethel is 0.04, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't care about that. What I do care about is the fact that there's a really good dude at the end of the street that pays attention to the neighbors. And if there's somebody weird lurking around the neighborhood, he's gonna say something to him, right? And if I'm buying a house, that's what I want. Like, I had that in my old neighborhood. I actually have this now at the new one. When I met the guy, he's like, anybody that comes in and out of this cul-de-sac, I'm keeping an eye on him for everybody. It was a weird way to say it, but I was like, okay, good. I mean, at least if there is some weirdo that comes into the neighborhood and tries to whatever, take my Christmas decorations, right? Like, he's probably going to see it happen, right? And so it's those little kind of pieces of action that you can take, I think, to make a difference in the negotiation and in just the information that you're able to hand out. Like, when I had that open house, the open house originally was scheduled from noon to 4, and I was there. A woman, a very nice woman, walked in at 11:20, and I hadn't even put the signs out yet, and wanted to tour the house, so I let her. And I was there talking to different families till almost 5:30. I mean, I was there it was a long open house. But everybody that asked about the neighborhood, I could say, oh, that guy's really good. I've met the neighbors. I know 2 doors down there's good neighbors. Like, it was a very easy action that I could take, right? And it took me 10 minutes talking to and I made a friend and a client. And at the same time, I was able to influence people in a positive way for every person that asked me, how's the neighborhood, right? Like, I was informative. I could easily answer those questions. Which also in turn, when the buyers, I ended up writing offers, right? I could tell them, yes, like, this is not a situation in which you're going to have to be concerned about the neighborhood, which makes it easier for the buyer's agent to be able to relay that information to the buyer, which makes them more motivated, obviously, to write a higher price or to give more concessions. So tools and models, systems, these ones, I mean, the tools for me, this was that piece that I showed earlier. I don't know where it is now, but that tool is what I always use for multiple offers. And I can share that. I know, Ray, I just shared it with you, but I can get everybody else's email and be able to share that out. So if you guys want to download a copy, it's super easy. And yeah, and really, like, systems, or not, I mean, models and systems really has been to truly, for me, the door knocking of the neighborhood, going into Arlid, getting county records, get some names. I use Mojo, but going into True People Search is also a good one, and you can get free information.
Yeah, don't we get access to Arlid through the brokerage?
Everybody should have a sign-in. Well, you should have a sign-in if you pay for it. I think it's $10 a month.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, then you'll have access to Arlid.
Yeah.
And then also,
Sure.
depending on, I mean, the other thing, so actually, Sunset Corridor, right? Joanna, I don't know if you you don't have Arlid, obviously, but whatever your county records are. I know that Fidelity has a tool. I know Western has a tool. And actually, I'll show you this really quick. I think I can show you this. Because this is something that I do like a lot, actually, is I go to Western Title. Because just because it's easy. I like their whatever layout. But the cool thing is, so county records are great, but county records are literally specific to the county, right? Which is fine. But what I like is with something like this, you guys can see this, right? You can see all this map that I have is I don't actually think it's right there, but it's called Billionaires Island. So, but I don't see it now for some reason. But any property, so whoever lives here, right? Bam. Well, of course, that one's not accessible. Thanks. Okay, hold on. Let me find an actual house. I think these are just buildings. Really? Give me one home. Airport. There, that's a house. Melvin Gomez was at 211 Northwest 35th Street, Miami, Florida. Right. So sometimes I'll go and I'll look up a property and I can be able to have, for the negotiation power, is figuring out like where the person lives. Or maybe I can figure out what their motivation is. Or are they going through a bank foreclosure? Or any of those kind of things to be able to give me one little piece of negotiation leverage. Or maybe that house, actually, here's a good example, right? So maybe that house, that 340 house, right? Where they're like, oh, we have to have our appliances, we need the appliances, blah, blah, blah. Maybe I look it up and I go, cool. So where are they moving from? They're moving from wherever, Florida. And I go, oh, Melvin. Okay, well, so Melvin wants to buy this house in Oregon. And we're talking about 10 grand, like 10 grand. Okay. Well, looks like Melvin bought this house for $130,000 in 03. Okay, Melvin's going to sell this house for $780,000. I think Melvin can probably handle an extra 10 grand in appliances, right? Like, does Melvin really need the appliances? Maybe he's got a bad gambling debt. I don't know, right? Maybe he's over leveraged, and maybe he's got a whole bunch of, maybe he's got a whole bunch of, not liens, but HELOCs, right? Maybe he's got a huge HELOC and he's maxed out to the hilt. But he doesn't. Look at this, 2008. He took a loan for 154. Like, the guy owns it free and clear in 2020, right? So some of that is figuring out kind of the intangibles, right? Because you can have a different kind of conversation. If I look up raised buyer and I know that raised buyer is, Bill Gates, then guess what? Old Bill's gonna be just fine. Bill can handle an extra 10 grand, right? And we can play a little bit harder ball, right? Because yes, there is some emotion tied to it, but also I know that there's multiple offers, and if Bill really wants it, Bill can offer 370, or he's out, right? Not that obviously you have to go to this depth on every offer necessarily, but I think that these tools are really helpful because they give you the upper hand when you're talking about incremental dollars, right? When you're talking about just a little different things, then that can mean the difference between picking the offer or not picking the offer. And then obviously from the buy side, that's the buyer's motivation, or the broker's motivation is to be able to show the same thing. Either they're really motivated, or hey, they're willing to walk away because Bill is not going to give up 10 grand. That's how he got rich. Fine, great. Then he doesn't get the house. One of the other two offers gets it. So yeah, So yeah, success. So obviously it looks like, so you guys still doing your 10 conversations, 10 contacts, 10 handwritten notes. Social media, always, right? Enrichments, appointments, agreements, closings. Social media, what is that? 10 likes, 5 DMs, and then is that shares? 1 share? Or is that a post? What's this orange one? Do you guys know?
It's a post.
I think
A
it's
post.
1 share, 1 post, and then 1 new friend.
Oh, like maybe a follower contact. Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's good. Yeah, that's a good start.
Yeah. You can always toggle your professional mode on Facebook on and off, and it helps offset for when you're adding friends.
Oh, like if you get over 5,000.
Well, it helps mess with the algorithm because at some point you can't keep adding friends, it'll block you. So if you just toggle before you get to that point.
Yeah. Smart.
Yeah. It messes with the algorithm. And it doesn't let
Hey,
it track.
whatever keeps you on top, that's the key, man. Let me tell you, you know. And I'll
Follow
tell
me
you,
for more
like,
Facebook tips.
yeah, these are, I mean, not always like riveting, but those handwritten notes, right? So I do this. So I do a happy birthday card. And then I also have I'm going to send out thousands of these, but same thing, happy anniversary.
Yeah.
Or happy house anniversary. So I send those to clients or friends, even if I haven't sold their house, right? I go to county records, I look up, you know, I mean, not that I'm going to necessarily do this to what's his face here, but our buddy, what's his name? Melvin. But Melvin bought his house in, 06? 8/31. So August 31st. No, just kidding. He bought it. Oh, wow. He bought it a long time ago. 03. 7/29. So I say, cool. All right. Well, Melvin and Doris. Looks like Melvin's the only one on there. So she might have passed away or been divorced. But yeah, right. Like it's just a nice little thing where you can send it out. Cost you postage. Postcards are cheap. I'll tell you from firsthand experience when I first got licensed, the iteration from handwritten card in an envelope with a regular stamp and then mailing to each one of my 2,000 friends on Facebook costs a lot in the long run. Versus now, my like 27-cent card and my 56-cent postage and my pre-written note where I just have to label it and then I initial it or I sign it, you know, is both huge for time consumption. You can get through that list much quicker. And it's legible and it's easy and you don't have to get creative with everyone saying, Ray, it's been 10 weeks. I really hope you and your family are doing great. Say hi to the dog and happy birthday. Like, ugh. Not that I don't care about you, but that's a lot when you're doing that 1,000 times, right? So coming up with those kind of ways is kind of fun. So yeah, so conversation sheet and yeah. All right, guys. Well, I guess it's all she wrote for today. So yeah, so do you guys have any questions or yeah, I'm happy to hang out for a minute if you have any other questions or all good. Everybody's
All
happy.
good.
Nice. All right, guys. Well, as always, I mean, Ray, you know this too, but if anybody is, you know, in or around the office, if you have any questions, call, email, I mean, whatever. I'm happy to answer any questions. Even to the point where actually I love this because I had a deal, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago. And I went across the hall, talking to Sarah, and I was like, man, I swear I'm not stupid. This addendum, I have for whatever reason cannot figure out the language, and it was like a huge roadblock. And I walked across, and in about a minute and a half, we brainstormed and got it right. And I was like, aha moment. Gosh, thank you so much. And went back, wrote the offer, got it accepted, good to go. So, yeah, open book. If you guys have any questions, obviously I'll I'll get all your emails and then I'll share the sheet for the multiple offers. Yeah, of course, no problem, Ryan. I just saw your message there, so happy to help. And like I said, anytime you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out, and happy to brainstorm and help you out. So,
Awesome.
all right, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again. I appreciate it. And yeah, have a good rest of your week.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right. See you guys.